I am here with Nevada State Senator Pat Spearman, who's running for Congress. Interesting dynamics in this race. It's not your usual race. How did you end up getting into it?
I got into it because some veterans, members of the LGBTQ, women, energy rights people all asked me. But we're on the other side of the primary now, and unfortunately it didn't go my way.
When you look at Nevada specifically and your work in the state Senate, what are sort of like the primary issues that are different from the issues that might be nationwide? I mean, I know in Nevada, for example, water is a big issue. What's sort of unique about state Senate in Nevada?
Well, I think one of the things that I think is unique is that some of the issues that we face, even at the national level, have to start with state government, such as voting. A lot of our energy resources have got to start with state government. When we start talking about education, that starts with state government. But at the end of the day, we still have to look at the money that is at the federal level that could go back to the states to do some of the things that we know need to happen for ordinary working people. So I think the distinction really is where the money is and where the job needs to be done.
And given more resources, what in Nevada could be done that's not being done?
I think, the first thing is we could improve our education system. We could improve our education K through 12. I don't think that it's the teacher that teaches the future astronaut. It's the teacher that teaches the future doctor. It's the teacher who teaches the future engineer. And so for the people who are teaching, giving them the foundation for those prosperous careers, I think that it's very unfair for us not to be paying teachers what they're worth. And the analogy that I use is, you don't give a world-class surgeon a can opener, an old-fashioned can opener, send them into surgery, and then be surprised with the results. And that's exactly what we're doing with our teachers. So the first thing I think that we've got to do is we've got to stop siphoning money off of public education into private schools, and we've got to make sure that we're building it up financially. Second thing is we're living in a very dynamic time with respect to energy, and in Nevada we have all of the renewable resources that you might want in order to develop a clean and renewable energy policy. We've got sun, we've got wind, we have geothermal, we have opportunity for bio, and so there's so many other things there. And I think one of the things that we could do here in our state or in Nevada is that our policies are becoming more progressive when it comes to renewable energy, but I think we've got to step out and stretch a little bit more. For example, I've got a bill coming up this next session that will expand the use of geothermal and looking at ways that we can have people to come into Nevada with advanced manufacturing, because that's more jobs. Had a couple bills last time that would expand the use of solar energy. A bill for a community bank for green banking, so people who don't have the money to invest in their homes or in their jobs or whatever can go and get a no interest or a low interest loan. Had another one that I shared with another bill that I co-sponsored with one of my colleagues, community solar. So there are a number of things we can do at the state level, and I think that in the era that we're in right now, with the administration that is there, and walking back so many of the protections that we have on environmental legislation, on energy, on civil rights, on equal rights, I think that it's very, very important that the states become now the firewall between this administration and the things that the people need and the people want.
There's this just horrible double standard on the concept of states' rights, I find, where there is, including the current federal administration, they're all about states' rights in theory, but then as soon as states want to do something that doesn't go along with their worldview, now all of a sudden they start to talk about federal supremacy and whether states really have the right to do that. As a state senator, does that debate impact you at all? When you're working with your colleagues, is there a discussion of whether the federal government is trying to allow or prevent you from doing what you're doing, or does it just not really come up?
Well, here's the thing, it comes up. But for example, in the last session, we decided that we, at the state level, were going to do the things that we knew that will protect our citizens. I chair the Health and Human Services Committee on the Senate side, and so I had a bill. I took all of the things out of the ACA and put them into state law, those things that we knew we would need, and to try to get that passed. It passed, but the governor vetoed it. So what I did then was I asked one of the members on the assembly side to take a look at that and talk to other people while the interim was going on, and I hope that we will bring that back during this session, and as a state we will make sure that people are covered, because I believe that health care is a right and it shouldn't depend upon how much money you have. There was a debate last session about prescription drug pricing. And I had so many people in my district who were diabetic or pre-diabetic who called or sent emails talking about how they didn't have the money to afford their prescriptions all the time. One lady called and told me, said the result of that now is that she was at stage 3 kidney cancer. So those things that the federal government won't do but should do,
right,
if we can do them at the state, we're going to do them at the state, and if they don't like it, sue us.
You talked about education. You have a doctorate in business administration. I have a master's in business administration, and this is sort of a slight tangential thing, but what do you learn when you get a doctorate in business administration? A lot of my professors in Massachusetts, where I went, had doctorates in business administration, and what is the sort of next level there from MBA to doctorate that becomes the focus?
Well, in a doctoral program, you have the luxury of drilling down and focusing on one thing. And for me, it was global energy policy.
Okay.
Looking at something that I know needs to happen in the business world. And for many of the Republicans, the whole issue about climate change, they try to make it, a partisan issue. It's not. Our global, we're warming, our climate is warming, and things are not getting better. So my focus on global energy policy was really designed to say, if you are in business, this makes sense to you, or it should make sense to you.
Right.
So the title of my doctoral study was Using Sustainable Development as a Competitive Advantage Tool, and reshaping it like that. Whereas at a master's level, you get a chance to do a little bit of that, but you don't get a chance to focus all of your time and attention on that. So I spent about 2 years researching global energy policies, looking at what Germany's doing, looking at what India's doing, looking at what France is doing, looking at what we should be doing but are not, looking at what China's doing. And it's interesting that right now the argument that is not being made for business here in this country is that China has decided to scale back and eventually eliminate their making, buying, leasing, renting of electrical vehicles, and they are going to, of combustible engine vehicles, and they're now going to start producing more electrical vehicles. Now what that's going to mean for the United States is that we're going to find ourselves in the same predicament that we did back in the early 80s with the Japanese coming in, because we took our eye, off the road. And so what I'm trying to do now as a state legislature is I'm saying to everyone who is involved, to the United Auto Workers, to AFL-CIO, to apprenticeship programs, we better get busy, and we better make sure that we are training and retraining people, because the jobs that we are fighting for and collective bargaining agreements, those jobs that we're fighting for, in 5 or 6 years, those jobs are going to go away. Yeah. And so what we've got to do as in business, we've got to make sure that we have training programs that are fully funded, because somebody's going to be 46 when their job goes away and they're not ready to retire. And if we don't pay attention to this, then we're going to find people who are in really good paying jobs right now, and those jobs, those union jobs, are supporting their families, and we're going to find them in the same position that the coal miners are right now. Yeah. So that's what business has to do with.
Yeah, and the issue of alternative energy, we can kind of split up what the current federal administration, the Trump administration, has been doing into stuff that can be pretty quickly reversed and the long-term impact. And for me, one of the long-term impact things is that when we pull out of the Paris Climate Accords, when we backtrack on Obama era, whatever, right? The rest of the world says if we want to really develop alternative energy, we don't go to the United States, because that's not where it's happening. We go to India, we go to China, etc. That's the type of longer-term damage that I see being done. And I mean, can state senates even push back against that? You did.
We did. We had a resolution that said we fully believe in the Paris Accord agreement, and we still support that. Yeah. And we wanted to make sure that the policies that we developed during the last legislative session did exactly that. So whatever craziness happens and comes out of 1600 Pennsylvania Avenue, right, if it's hurtful to Nevadans, we're not thinking about that. We're not going to do it, and to the extent that we can, we're going to use the state powers to do the things that we know are necessary. And eventually, I think if we have enough states that do that, it doesn't matter about what they say, because the effect will really be that they're saying one thing, but we're doing something else. And I think that other countries will see that as well. So.
Nevada has some interesting sort of internal dynamics in terms of the bluer areas, the redder areas. There's the city of Las Vegas, you've got Reno, some other smaller cities, a huge land area that's very, very rural. What are the sort of rural issues that are particular to Nevada?
Jobs and interconnectability between internet, interconnectability with respect to transportation. But the biggest thing is jobs, because in most of those rural areas, they have been supported for years on mining of precious minerals, and the up and down nature of the price of gold did the same thing with the communities. It was up and down, and down. And so right now you have a number of communities who were prosperous and very thriving when gold was at a high level, but now they're just kind of languishing. So what I said, and I said this a lot during my previous run for Congress, is that what we need to do is we have to take our energy policy and put all the resources that we have in those rural communities, we need to put that into play so that we are giving a dynamic economic development tool to them. For example, we have 61 different mines or mines that are closing or abandoned in Nevada. Yeah. Now, all of those mines won't work, but some of those mines will work very well to repurpose them for geothermal plants. The building and the conversion of those plants will bring a lot of jobs. Now, once the plants are finished, there won't be that many jobs, but there are other things on the periphery that will come to those communities, such as advanced manufacturing, such as research, and those types of things will come in, and that will mean a burgeoning of the community. So what we have done so far in Nevada is we've concentrated on the urban areas, but I think now we have a real good possibility to focus on our rural areas, and as we focus on them, then the economic disparity that exists right now between urban and rural, I think that eventually will go away.
The internet access thing is huge, and that I think, here at the conference I've been talking to a lot of would-be and current lawmakers about what do people in, like I'm in Boston, the so-called elite coastal cities that are often derided by some, not always totally unfairly depending on what we're talking about, what don't they get about what's happening in some more rural areas? And I know Colorado has areas that are the least well connected when it comes to internet. Nevada has a similar issue. At this point, it's hard to even imagine what it would be like to have that limited internet connection, but it affects all areas of life at this point. I mean, it's a make or break issue because it connects to so many other political issues, doesn't it?
Mm-hmm. It does. And here's the thing that a lot of people didn't recognize: when net neutrality went away, that exacerbated an already bad situation. Right. And so when you start talking about the inequity with respect to internet access, internet connections, when you start talking about that, what it really means is that for some people who were barely making it with internet connections, now can barely not make it. I mean, I look at when I download on my phone, what used to take that much time now it's like very slow motion, like that. And I can, and some of the people that are in the rural areas, and this affects education too. Right. Absolutely. It affects education. It also affects the ability for people who are differently able to interact and be fully solvent, if you will, with respect to them interacting with their government and doing just some ordinary things. So that interconnectability is huge. And when we don't make sure that there is equality across the board, every place in this country, whether it's urban or whether it's rural, every place in this country has the right to have high-speed access, because it's a matter, and in some cases, because we expanded telehealth, in some cases it truly can be a matter of life and death. Yeah. And so when we start looking at that, and I think along with that, something that we're not talking about that much, is the security of the internet and what we have seen that has happened so far. And it's not fake news, it's real news. Very real. And so with the interconnectability that we're talking about, I think we also have to look at cybersecurity. When you look at internet connections, some of that also plays into our daily lives. I have a smart thermostat And so, you know, if the internet is acting crazy, then I can't control, you know, the heat or the cooling aspects of my. Some people use the internet as a way to read the time that they need to take their medicine. Some people use the internet and that's their lifeline. They don't have a telephone, but if they have internet capability, they know they can always reach somebody. So these are some really deep issues, and I really wish that what we would start doing is we would start focusing on the things that matter, and leaving the crazy talk alone.
Sure.
You know, I have a theory that if most people would stop talking about the tweets of number 45, and if most people would stop talking about the idiocy that comes out and the 7.6 lies a day, if media would stop focusing on that and go 24 hours with not mentioning his name at all, just 24 hours, he would not be able to stand it, because he gets air from all of that media. It doesn't matter whether it's good, bad, or indifferent. As long as he hears his name once a day, he's good. So what we ought to do is we ought to stop calling his name and start focusing on the things that are going to really make and keep our people healthy. We ought to start focusing on the things that strengthen our democracy and calling out those who will not protect it. We've got to focus on the things that affect our military men and women, because they're the ones that right now are at risk for going into a stupid war that he will invent just because he had some type of a Twitter conflict with someone in North Korea. So we've got to stop focusing on the Ringling Brothers, Barnum and Bailey, you know, circus, and focus on the things that are affecting people, because those are the things that people, as an elected official, those are the things that the people who elected me, that's what they expect me to do. That's what they expect me to do.
More than one possible dumb war that's in play right now.
Exactly.
I've been speaking with Nevada State Senator Pat Spearman. Really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Pleasure to meet you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you.